that was written by a very uh, erudite professor who lived in the town in which Grandma and Grandpa grew up. And this man made a collection going back to the early founding of the village, which was actually in Roman times. But he started to write things about it and famous people going back to the third, fourth, and fifth century up to modern times, and of someone of prominence or significance that was noted in the town or made a contribution to the town or stood out in some way. In one of the chapters was of Grandpa's brother, okay, and his name was Leone d'Alessandro di Giuseppe, which means of Joseph, that was his father's name. That's how you wrote about yourself in those days. You put your parentage in your name. And it says about him, he was, I tell you, I'm going slow because this is just off the top of my head translation. He was a humble stable boy, almost a oh, I gotta start over. He was a humble worker, almost a stable boy as a youngster, working with the family of the Signor Enrico and Carlo Luigi Sassi. But he seemed from birth to be made for the army. He was so brave since infancy. His employers admired him and loved him very much because of his character that was so frank and loyal, because of his honesty and his fidelity irrepressible, especially Don Antonio, the second of Don Enrico's sons. He loved him as a brother. And Don Antonio loved him too for his noble heart. And during and in between the battles of the war, he would write from the front letters inspired of his high love and his Italianness and his serene sacrifice. Those simple pages, often scribbled upon a sack or upon the earth in the middle of the bombardments, they were most always accompanied with small mountain flowers secured through the rocks in front of the trenches. And he would send a message of gentleness along with his most cordial and affectionate greetings. In the letters sent to his dear friend in the remembrance of the New Year's of 1918, after sending his best wishes, he wrote to his friend, "I am very tranquil, perfectly serene, decided to do the utmost of my duty, to be strong and a good soldier, until the ultimate, secure, actually very secure victory of our armies. I do not know if it is within my power to reach the day in which our tricolor will fly over Trieste and Trento. But death does not frighten me. If it is for me to fall, falling for our beautiful Italy. I will die content, exclaiming to the sky and to the holy name, and sending the ultimate of my kisses to our blessed banner. Leon D'Alessandro felt the war almost as a soldier of another time. And on that day of the day before New Year's, he was participating in many arduous battles with his gentle soul, great and generous. He was called to the army, happy and serene. On the battlefield, he was always the first among the first, audacious for the audacious. He was always ready to offer his solid chest, his solid heart, vigorous for every fierce battle, for every fierce endeavor, with the most maximum tranquility, indifference, almost as if death was indifferent to him, and almost as if death would have been sweet to him, almost as if the war was a game among youngsters. When he would return to the village for some brief furlough, he would narrate voluntarily not the great things he did in battle, but the funny little everyday things, the funny occasions of things between soldiers that would be characteristic of everyday military life at the front, and some of the things that would happen to him and his fellow soldiers. He was always happy. He had for everyone a smile and bountifulness and gentility. He never assumed, ever, the pose of a hero of the military. He never revealed all he did for his country, for his beautiful Italy, that he loved among all things, and that he wished for it to be great and grand and respected. And he seemed this to be the most simple wish, the most natural wish, the most necessary wish. With a frank soul, but a very heroic soul, he had about him an air of a panache, of Lammermoor, that completed his persona. Lammermoor was a famous general. He distinguished himself at Mount Sexton, that was occupied by his own initiative. During the night against the Austrians, during the night of the 30th of October in 1915, and that of the 1st of November, the Bersaglieri Corps, that's the name of the group, and of the 8th Regiment, of which D'Alessandro belonged, took place in a fierce battle. It was their duty to repossess and go against and attack the enemy who had retaken their positions. It was their assignment, their mission, to reconquest their positions, advanced positions on Mount Sexton in the Alps. Especially the second try. The battle began and lasted 6 hours. From from the 20th hour of the night until the morning. They assumed movements of various positions, really very epic. And it was difficult because much of it was done in the dark, in the middle of snow, fine snow, so that one could not see, in a temperature, I don't know what this means, below zero, and at a height of 2,350 meters. I think that's 10,000 feet. I'm not sure, but up in the high in the mountain, at that height, the arduous defense terminated with our victory, and at the shouting of Savoy, which was the name of the royal family, the enemy were in retreat. Leon d'Alessandro fell for his valor and for his heroism during this battle, was promoted in grade for merits of the war of the war and the battle by Lieutenant General Piacentini, commander of the First Corps of the First Armored Military Corps, sent to France to fight with the French at Billy and Chemins des Dames and Longenbred. It was his destiny to do outstanding things there too. Also, during the famous retreat of Caporetto, with the grade of Marshal, Field Marshal, he was seen guiding and gathering up columns of Bersaglieri in retreat, having them, but through his own initiative, regroup, gathering others to enough to sustain another attack against the enemy, the Austro-Hungarians, at the river and mountain Tofane. This soldier, very much a model, and honors the people of our village, San Martino. We dedicate this plaque of marble that rests on the local Association National of Combattanti Veterans Building with this simple epigraph that tells about his dignified life and the example he gave to posterity. It says, Leone d'Alessandro, here born from a working class family on February 3rd, 1891. He was called to service to serve his country. He was a simple soldier in the Bersaglieri group, with glorious beneficence in the Great War. He reached the grade of lieutenant of the military services. He distinguished himself at Billy and Chemsedan, and for his heroism was given the Croix de Guerre by the commander of all the French forces in World War I, Marshal Pétain. In memory of him, that while traveling toward the troops in Eritrea, he was struck with a feral morbid fever on the 4th of July, 1920, and in that moment, no, in the 4th of July in 1920. And for that, in the example that he set for us and the people of this town, we dedicate this marble plaque to him, to inscribe it here forever for the people of San Martino and for the immigrants overseas. Okay? The ceremony for the unveiling of this epitaph, this lapita, this marble, was done in this place on the 14th of March, 1931, officially orated by the attorney Spirafone Caprice, president of the local Congress. In the name glorious Leon D'Alessandro, of this genuine son of our people, after us having erected a magnificent monument in the memory of all our fallen sons in the war, we wish to honor him in a special way. This valorous soldier who never returned, who suffered and did the best for his country, for our ultimate victory. For this he merits this great honor we give him. And for him we give credit for having done his duty, so that our country could, at the end of this war to end all wars, could have attained finally its ultimate borders. We have reclaimed and finalized our unification by the end of this war, regaining Trieste and Trento, our ultimate borders. With the glory of that, we honor him. We honor him and put this plaque here so that the other young people of our country and of our town will see him as an example. We'll see him as an example of one, and we consecrate this in the memory of Leon D'Alessandro and hope that it will endure forever in our town and will say to the public, Gloria.